how they do it.
Quick question. Um, I saw a wonderful thing you wrote about, things that we may or may not want to do, and I can't seem to find it in my many documents that I have open now for this.
We'll be
Where is
going
that?
we'll be going over it today, but at ddev.com/blog.
Blog. Okay.
Yeah,
Huh. Okay.
first thing there.
Got it.
So we'll be looking at that
Yes.
today, and talking about it because those are proposals. You're the people here. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it so much. This is our once a year longer form meeting where we review the previous year of DDEV and uh, talk about initiatives and plans and issues for the coming year. Normally we would do this in January, but of course I was in Chile in January. So we skipped that meeting and here we are. And very happy to have you all here today. Let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. If you don't have your video turned on, let's see. I'll just ask you to um, introduce yourself. I'm Randy Fay. I'm the lead maintainer of DDEV. I'm very happy to have you here. And I see that Britt and Tolk are interpreting for Truls. Truls, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, hello, my name is Truls. I'm from Norway, and I've been involved in this team for quite a while. And I have been focusing on DDEV and DevOps support as much as possible lately.
Great to have you here. Chris Wells, go ahead.
Hi, Chris Wells from Redfin Solutions in Maine in the United States. And we've been using DDEV as our locally supported development environment for what is probably going on 3 years now. And it's a great community to be a part of and adjacent to us being a Drupal shop. So happy to be here.
Great to have you. Carrie, go ahead. Did you get retired?
Yes, I did. I am the now the retired, although not completely inactive, president of the Cherry Hill Company. Library technology hired for guns, specializing in Drupal. So I am now a consultant to that company, doing server grunt work mostly. And I've been involved with Drupal since 2005. I've been involved with DDEV for a while. I'm a big time promoter in my small time way.
Great to have you here. You are now the president emeritus.
Yes.
That sound great or what?
Yeah, it does. No money comes with that, but yeah. Hey,
Jonas, glad to have you here. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jonas. I'm using DDEV mostly with Typo 3, but recently also with Shopware. I'm also, I think, a long time with this project and promoting it now, getting it to other agencies as well. So other agencies are asking us to implement DDEV and deployment for them. Yeah, glad to be here.
Great to have you. Jonas, if you haven't met him, has been contributing some of the trickiest and most important little bit to DDEV over a really long time, stepping up when there's a really difficult problem, which is fantastic. Andrew, go ahead.
Yes, hello, my name is Andrew Berry. I'm the Director of Technology at Lullabot, and we use DDEV on all our projects and do a bit of contribution here and there.
Here and there, he says, Andy just spent like 4 months tracking down one of the trickiest bugs that has ever been caught, an intermittent bug that seemed to only happen on large projects on GitHub Actions. And that was a very, very impressive thing that you did. Congratulations on that.
Well, I don't know if solving a bug is worthy as congratulations, but I will think of all the times that we don't have to rerun actions and burn all that energy.
Andy, I guess it's Andy Bloom looking through the. Andy, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Andy Bloom. I'm a lead engineer at Lullabot. I have not been able to attend these meetings in quite some time, so I'm just happy to be back again. Recently been poking around at trying to make DDEV work with Node.js applications and stuff like that.
Outstanding. I should have asked if someone would take the meeting notes. A lot of times Andy Bloom has been the one to do that. Is we have a volunteer for that?
I've started them here locally because I didn't know if it was happening, but the discussion didn't have a link to a Google Doc yet. But if you'd like, I can just create one if that's
That
the
would be
right thing.
fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad to contribute as well. This is Selwyn. If you have a link.
Yep, I'll get one up soon.
Ben, glad to have you here. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I co-contributed the craft CMS type to DDEV, and I tried to monitor that and otherwise provide moral support to Randy and the project in general.
Lots of great moral support, very much appreciated. How is the DDEV integration working with Craft 5 at this point? Doing okay?
Yeah, Craft 5 hasn't really introduced anything new. What is coming is something called Craft Cloud, which is kind of a cloud-hosted version. But from what I've seen, the Pixel and Tonic teams, the team behind Craft itself, have been making some small contributions to DDEV just to remove any friction from that. So no issues there.
Excellent. That's great. Brian, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey folks, I guess I'm the only Brian. Thanks, Randy. So Brian Youngblood, Associate Director of IT Solutions for Healthcare Without Harm. And I'm currently in Montgomery, Alabama, but do a bit of traveling here and there. We've been using DDEV for mostly WordPress, Drupal, and some backdrop projects. And we're looking to incorporate a lot of our Python and Node.js applications from our data teams within the DDEV projects. Do some coordination there to bring things together. And we also include DDEV in a lot of our RFPs and statement of works. So we maintain consistency. So as I look at a lot of agencies out there, those are some of the things we look for as a client, I guess, in your case. Good to be here.
Great to have you. And Guy Sartorelli, I think for the first time. And what time is it in the morning for you, Guy?
Guy just put a message in the chat saying it's 5 a.m. and the walls are thin. So out of respect for my neighbors, I'm not going to be talking out loud.
Okay, thank you very much.
There's more we can read, it looks like.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, he's a maintainer of Silverstripe CMS, using DDEV since the end of last year. Pretty new around here, but loving it. Been making the odd contribution here and there since I started using it.
It's the first time somebody in the Pacific has ever been able to join, except Julien today, who is in France instead of Japan. But well, I'm so happy to have you here, Guy, and of course, thank you for all of your excellent contributions. You've been using DDEV since the end of last year, a few months, and you've been making enormous contributions in that time. So thank you. Mark, go ahead.
Hey, my name is Mark Lebrecq. I've been working with DDEV for a couple of years at least now. I work for a small development shop in Vancouver, BC, Canada, called Affinity Bridge, and we mostly do Drupal, a little bit of WordPress, and we're getting more into the front end with React JS and Next.js and that kind of thing. So, yeah, looking forward to hearing what's going on this year.
Great, fantastic. Paul Gilzo, go ahead. You are muted.
So I'm Paul Gilzo with a developer relations engineer at Platform.sh based in Columbia, Missouri, in the middle of the States. And then I work with Randy to build out the integration between DDEV and our services.
Great to have you here. Robert Lang, great to have you here. I don't think you've been to a few of these lately, have you? Great to have you here.
Hi, yeah, I've had some time issues. Hi, my name is Robert. I'm from Germany, technical lead at Interlutions. We are working with DDEV around 6 years now, I guess. Yeah, when I started at Interlutions, I started to push out DDEV for all our development projects. So we all have one single point of truth how projects are set up. So it's around Typo3, Shopware, WordPress, Symfony custom stuff. I also do like Java development with Maven support with DDEV right now. So yeah, quite busy at the moment, but happy with DDEV anyway.
Great to have you here. Thanks for coming. And Stas.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stas. I'm from Kremenchuk, Ukraine. I'm a maintainer of DDEV. I work with DDEV mostly on Laravel projects, and I'm glad to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Great to have you. Thanks for everything you've been doing. Now, since the names pop around, if there's anybody I missed, go ahead and speak up now. It looks like we got everybody. So
I haven't gone.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. My name is Selwyn Pollitt in Austin, Texas, in the US. I work for a Drupal shop called Mighty Citizen, Drupal backend dev. And yeah, I've written a online book about Drupal that some of you programmers might want to know about called Drupal at Your Fingertips, and using DDEV for a while now.
And of course, put the link in the chat there.
Okay.
It's an amazing labor of love that Selwyn has done, getting a lot of attention lately.
Thanks, Randy.
Carrie Gordon said, whenever it's appropriate, should we be reaching out to the WordPress community? You know, I've been stymied on that for years. I guess we shouldn't really go there right now, but that should go in the notes. If anybody knows how to do that successfully, then we will do it. The problem is that the WordPress community is not a single community with a single meeting place. And so the best expert on WordPress that I know is Paul, and Paul really knows everything about WordPress. So maybe we can take that as a follow-up action and at least discuss that, Paul. But I've been stymied on that over the years because they do have one or two users, and it would be nice to have them using DDEV. And we do have a number of WordPress people using DDEV. Yeah, Ben.
I don't want to derail any agenda, but I did want to make a quick note that I was delighted to see, Randy, that it was possible. Not only was it possible for you to take the time off to go do your trip in Chile, but I watched your presentation of it together with Nancy, and it looked really incredible. So I think that's a really positive sign and thing that you were able to do that, and DDEV hasn't suffered at all in the meantime. So well done on that.
Yeah, you know, what a great community, and what a great co-maintainer as well. It It is just a great community. I did put the link to the slideshow in the chat there. And so, yeah, we used to have people that, I mean, not DDEV, well, actually DDEV back in the day when it was the company DRUD did actually go to those camps sometime. But that's a really good idea. It's a really good idea. Just the camp approach is a good idea. So, okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda and go forward. Your comments and questions and thoughts are welcome all the time. And of course, you can also add to the notes and add to the meeting chat. So let me share my screen. And we'll just take a look at the agenda here. We did get the recording going, and thanks for making the minutes happen. Our first item on the agenda here is to take a look at the 2023 review blog post, which probably you've all had a chance to take a look at, but we haven't had a chance to discuss. So this is at ddev.com/blog, where also the 2024 plans are. And the first item here, I think all of you know, is that you are very much appreciated. You're appreciated as this group. You're appreciated as the contribution that you do. And it's just great working with you. We have conversations about, for example, what platform would like us to do some better Python and Django support than we have, but we don't have a community for that. And it's you as a community over, what is it, 7 years that have made DDEV what it is. So thank you for that, because it's your saying what's needed and what needs to happen and what's wrong and what would make your life better. That is what makes DDEV what it is. So that's just amazing. And thank you for being here with the advisory group. And we always thank platform.sh for being our lead sponsor. It's a fantastic thing. And you know, we have a number of other significant sponsors now, which is very much appreciated. Tag One has stepped up to $1,000 a month, which is very impressive. And we never forget that we are actually built on the shoulders of everybody that makes all the pieces that we use. So I know that's confusing to when it becomes a problem, like when the dev.suri.org key expires or something like that, we suddenly have a DDEV problem. But that entire community with its warts and its strengths is a great thing. So I'm going to skip through some of these that are obvious to you. There were so many releases that I couldn't even parse them or count them. But if you didn't know, DDEV add-ons got a major refresh with DDEV get-list having many official add-ons now. We now have a DDEV get-dash installed and a remove and a version option that make the DDEV get much more appropriate. There's also been talk about, and we'll talk about it in our 2024 suggestions about having a better way to list the add-ons, a registry for them, which would be pretty cool. So let me just get the people out here. Kevin, I'm glad to see you here. Mutagen is now enabled by default on macOS and Windows. the traffic router is now the standard one, and the old one is now fading away. There are only a couple of things that you really need the old one for now. One of which is casual type hosting, like the way I host my little websites. But that just needs somebody to take some attention to it, and I think we probably should, in the interest of decreasing complexity, we should probably find a way to drop the Nginx proxy router next year or this year, whatever. As you know, we were there with PHP 8.3 before it even came out with a full release. We have Upsun hosting integration in terms of DDEV pull Upsun. So Upsun is a new product from Platform. At this point, all we've had the ability to do is to get the pull in there. Platform would obviously like deeper integration like we have with their regular traditional platform. We have an add-on for that, which works pretty well for a number of CMSs. It's definitely not perfect, but the new product is a little different, and doesn't have as many examples and that sort of thing. So we have that in the to-do list. Acquia integration is improved. You don't have to edit the file anymore. Lagoon was added, and I did a webinar on this with the Lagoon folks from Amazy the other day. That's a growing thing. We have DBeaver database support now. DBeaver is an open source freemium thing that works on a lot of platforms, and now in the latest head, it works on WSL2 as well. So I think it works on Mac OS. I think it works on Linux with DDEV. I'm not sure, but it works on Mac OS and WSL2, and I think it works on traditional Windows as well. The DDEV version constraint, which I think was pioneered by Andrew, if I remember right, is there now. Are you using that, Andrew?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we use that to make sure that people get their systems up to date when new versions of DDEV coming out, because we've especially found that like people will be running like 2-year-old versions of DDEV and we'd lose a lot of troubleshooting time.
Somebody came to the support with a version 1.15 the other day from 2018. They had some problems with the thing too, wondering why the commands weren't there. Thank you. I'm glad that's working for you. So DDEV version constraint lets you put into your config.yaml what versions of DDEV should work with your project. We did add experimental Python and Django support using gUnicorn last year. I'm not very happy with it, and it doesn't have a community at this point, and I don't understand gUnicorn enough to find my way out of it. So Paul and I have talked about that, and we've had long discussions about that, and we'll see where we go. But like I said earlier, without a community around it, without people being interested in using it, it's hard for it to have a future. It's you people in the PHP world that have made DDEV what it is over all these years. So that's great. And I couldn't even parse all the different other improvements. I'm sure I left out a number of things. Any comments on those features from last year?
Let me ask, how does this Python support work now? How does the router know which service is to be used and so on?
There's a web server type, so you can use web server type Django 4 or Python. And there's quick starts for it. And if you just search for Python in the docs, you'll be there in no time.
All right,
So,
good.
any other comments or questions about the thing? It sounds like you know a thing or two about Python, Jonas. It'd be great to
Not really, no, and I'm not using it in the web, so sorry.
Other things that we did, we had a major initiative to get all of the repositories updated to use DDEV and not use the old DRUD name that came from the company that sponsored DDEV for like 5 years. We thank them for that, even though they lost their funding in the end. It was a very generous thing for them to support this for those years. But we did get rid of that, and we did solve some of the naming issues. For example, we got Docker Hub to let us use the DDEV name and things like that. The foundation or the fiscal organization that we use to receive funds for fundraising for DDEV was renamed from the Local Dev Foundation to the DDEV Foundation. Platform.sh, which owns the DDEV trademark, licensed that to us for that purpose. So that's a step forward using DDEV everywhere. At the time the Local Dev Foundation was created, it was not clear that we would ever be, it was before the platform.sh swooped in and solved the problems with the other organization that owned the bones of DRUD for a while. So anyway, it's nice to see these things get sorted out. The DDEV Foundation has applied for the 501c3 nonprofit status in the US, and that allows us not to have to pay taxes, and contributions to it can be tax deductible. Most business organizations don't really care because it's an expense anyway, but if it is considered a charitable contribution, then it is a tax deductible one. Yesterday I did the US IRS reporting requirement, which is called a postcard, some number postcard that you have to report. So I did the reporting requirement for that yesterday. And unless something goes wrong, they take forever to approve a 501c3, but unless something goes wrong with that, we can just act like we're a 501c3 until then. So that's why I was able to do just do the postcard, even though they haven't approved it yet. I put my hours here. It's not that relevant.
Follow up on the 501c3. So as of now, it's not approved. But potentially people that are giving personally could still donate and write it off in tax year 2023. This may be a question for an accountant, but just asking, like, without the approved status, does it count for 2023? And if so, is it only since we applied? So are only 7 months out of the year deductible, or would it be all 12? Or do you not know, which is also a fair answer?
But I am not a tax accountant, but if you paid through GitHub, then I doubt that it would be tax deductible at all. If you paid directly to the DDEV Foundation, I would expect it to be deductible for the whole year. And of course, they don't actually know or count that stuff. They just expect you to have good records for it. So they don't know anyway. So
probably only relevant in an audit, in a tax audit. You have to prove it.
Typically, typically things that or organizations that accept donations send yearly letters, hopefully not on paper, saying thank you for your donation, and that's your record.
Yeah, here's the amount you gave in 2023 for your records. Yeah, that is a good point.
That is an excellent point, and that's something that we will have to do. And it isn't possible to do that for most of our donors at this point, because we don't have their email addresses if they're coming through GitHub. But the ones that do it directly, like Chris's organization, we can do that, and that is a good thing. But as Kevin points out, the tax benefit of just calling it an expense is much better than the tax benefit otherwise. An expense is much better than a tax deduction. But still, the point is, individuals giving should get an acknowledgement of that if it's not through GitHub, and that's something that we need to do. So that definitely goes on the to-do list. And of course, just acknowledging every year, regardless, even though we probably can't make it tax deductible for individuals, we absolutely can send to people for whom we have an email. We can send them that information. That's one of the frustrating things about GitHub. GitHub makes it so easy for people to give, but then a new donor comes in and I want to send them a thank you note, and I can go to their GitHub account on GitHub, and they probably have a website on there, and their website probably has a contact form, and I go to the contact form and say, how can I do this? We have a $200 a month donor who just showed up out of nowhere and should have their logo on DDEV.com, but they don't reply to you. You send them a note and they don't do it. And of course, we're going to send everyone a puppy. So that's a great idea. I have a friend who has 9 puppies right now that any of you can have, and that's great. So, okay. Thank you for that. And I'm glad to have that, that new task on the list there. You're the advisory group. Thank you for being here. The new explicitly supported project types that I was able to notice are Silverstripe, Python, and Django 4. Right now, though, as of today, we have Cake PHP, which is going to get done quite soon. It's already in great shape, and so we'll have Cake PHP in no time. And we also have a very nice PR going for all these things that you never heard of. How many? Contao, is that how you say it? So Contao from Morgie 93 is working on that, and we're going to have that as well. So anyway, Silverstripe, Python, Django 4, Cake PHP, Contao. There are many people using DDEV without an explicit project type, and for most people, it may not even be that relevant, or for some number of people. For example, those of you in the Drupal world know how to do a Drupal settings file, and so you don't actually need DDEV to create a settings.ddev.php for you, but it is convenient. It makes things awfully easy. And the new hosting integration with Lagoon we mentioned earlier, and Acquia and Platform were updated and improved. And of course, I left off of their Upsun because we do, when I say hosting integration here, I'm saying, what can you do a DDEV pull with? So as far as project adoption, after all these years, there was, maybe Andrew opened the request to treat DDEV as the official or documented or preferred development environment for Drupal. Was that you, Andrew?
I didn't open it, but I got motivated at DrupalCon and kicked the issue along.
Okay. Well, as far as I can tell, it went well. It got support from all the powers that be. And even though Drupal never makes decisions like that, Drupal seems to have made a decision like that. They changed the wording, which I think is great, because it doesn't, you don't have to do DDEV at the exclusion of anything else, but to give an explicit way for the Drupal docs to just say, here, do this is a good thing, even though everybody knows it can be done more than one way. So
I think you can add typo 3 to that list. So as well, the typo 3 company has DDEV on their site as exclusive means of local development tool. And also the association and the documentation and the installation guide and everything is all
That's
pretty
been-
much based on DDEV. Yeah.
that's been true for years. Yeah. So
Mhm.
that's why I didn't put it here this year.
I
is-
see. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Craft CMS also has it done that way very nicely. It's integrated into the docs just like it is on Typo 3. Very nicely integrated, but it's just not mentioned because it didn't happen in 2023. It happened in an earlier year. So thank you for pointing that out. And Ibexa also updated their world to do that. And Python and Django, I think we've talked about enough. Let's talk about marketing and communication. Matt Stein, who was tremendously active for a period while he was kind of between engagements, created a completely new DDEV.com, which is a flat file or static content website using Astro. And he even imported and converted the old content that was useful from the old WordPress site. The thing that I love about this the most is that anybody can create a PR with an article and it's documented. So anybody can fix something that's broken with a PR in DDEV.com, and anybody can add a blog, and anybody can even do a PR to fix an old blog post. So it's lovely compared to the old way with a WordPress or any CMS content that requires, requires privileges and understanding of what to do and everything. So it's an amazing accomplishment that he has done. And Bernardo has also become a co-maintainer on the DDEV.com site, which is fantastic.
Randy, is that process documented anywhere? Is there a link to making PRs into the website?
Absolutely, it is. And there's a full, last year we did many contributor sessions. So if you go to, let me just get it here for you so that you know where it is. So if you go to the blog, actually, if you just search in there, here it is, DDEV website for contributors. It's fully explained how to do it, and there is a video that goes with it, so you can do that. Let me just put here.
I'll put that in the notes.
Love to have your contribution there, so that's great. I think that and if you haven't looked at DDEV.com, like the getting started, let me just show you that. What he did is astonishing. So you see the front page is an ordinary front page with all the things that you see and ignore on any project's front page. But it has, our supporters and that kind of thing, and featured sponsors and all those kinds of things. But if you go to get started, you see here he made it so that you can choose your platform, and you can and it's actually animated with how to do it, where to do it, and that kind of thing. So, and when this gets out of date, PR can fix it. So it's to me, the biggest deal, I would probably rather have people. Yeah, I have to check and see if this still is exactly what it is. I think it is still correct. Oh, look at, he even made it so that it automatically updates to the current DDEV version. It's amazing. It's
That's cool.
that is just amazing. There's a lot of magic in there. So Terry, let's come back and talk about WordPress when we do the second part of planning for the year.
Oh
Because I
yeah,
think
I'm just putting stuff up as I think about it, so I don't forget. I just figure that's in there, and I have no idea why it's in bold.
I'm just acknowledging that because I think it's a good idea, and I think that is a great idea. So Matt's work was fundamental to making DDEV.com more community maintainable, which is great for me. And of course, having another maintainer on there with Bernardo. Matt doesn't have much time for this now. So he's kind of dropped off of reviews and that kind of thing, but he made it all happen. As you know, we spent a lot of effort last year and continue to spend effort on marketing and just doing basic marketing things. So we do now have a CRM and a customer relationship management system that we use to capture contacts, to contact people about funding, and we use that and mail management system to send out the newsletter. So we do have the monthly newsletter. You all get the monthly newsletter, right? Everybody sees that. If you you can sign up for it at ddev.com/newsletter if you're not getting it. The craft folks were kind enough to invite me to Barcelona, and we had a great time together there, getting to know some people, and Ben helped me, get to know more people, and we had a great time, and it was great to meet him there and to meet all the other people. It was great, great to have that craft community connection. And they actually paid for some of the expenses, which I thought was pretty awesome. I haven't ever really seen that before. They paid the expenses, they paid some of the expenses and provided a hotel, and then they provided a what do you call it? Anyway, they gave some more money to cover some more expenses. So it was very impressive. I haven't been getting at DrupalCons. I often have the chance to go to DrupalCon, and I think I'll be at Portland. But for 10 years, I've been submitting sessions and I never get them accepted. And this past year, somebody said, well, why don't you get somebody to help you with it, with your submission, and see if you can figure out what's wrong. So I did. I got a couple of people to review. It still didn't get accepted. So at Portland, I'll do the same thing again and do lots of BOFs, which are actually better anyway. So a lot of times a smaller group in a smaller room is just a better thing to do in the first place.
Have you considered dressing up and doing dancing maybe as part of your presentation?
But if you put that in the, maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the thing.
I think some dancing and some acrobatics.
I couldn't remember the various things that might have been done for publicity this year. Mike Anello did interview me about DDEV project governance and health in one of his podcasts, and I put a link to that there. I'm sure there were other things last year that I don't remember. So, contributors and maintainers, we did a whole bunch of contributor and maintainer trainings last year. Let me show you those. DDEV.com's blog contributor training. We did all of these session recordings. So from July through November, we did quite a number of things about support and marketing and architecture and testing infrastructure and all those kinds of things. And all except one we forgot to record are there as recordings. And we'll be starting those up again in the next month or two as I get caught up. Some of them we'll do again. Some of them will do new things. But that was a great thing having those people there, and I think those have been great for the community. And whoever asked about how to maintain the DDEV.com, that started out here as the August 15th maintain and improve DDEV.com. And then somebody turned it into a blog post using the technique in that. So that wasn't me that turned it into a blog post, and it wasn't Matt that turned it into a blog post. So that was very cool. You've met Stas, he's here. He's a marvelous maintainer. I'm so happy to have you, Stas, as you know. And Stas and I meet every week in Discord in the maintainer. I don't know what the channel's called. Anyway, we meet live in video, and everybody else is welcome to that. We do it at I think we do it at 9 or 10 a.m. on Mondays, Mountain Time. And if you want to join us, you can, or if you see us in there, you're welcome to join us. I've already explained what Matt Stein did this year, but he's mostly stepped back into the background now. We talked about this last time, and Simon Gill stepped away from the project after years and years of incredible contributions. And at that time, at our last meeting in November, I said, I hope he'll be back, but I don't believe he's back either to DDEV or to the Typo 3 community. And we haven't had any contact with him. I was explaining this to somebody the other day. I was saying I could write a whole blog post of the contributions that Simon did. At the time we talked about this, Andrew mentioned that we should pay attention to the privileges that he was granted. And so we have removed privileges from his accounts in case somehow his account were compromised, or anyway, we have removed those privileges. So that was good thinking, Andrew, and we did follow up on that. I think this is mentioned elsewhere, but Mike Anello became a signer on the bank account. So it just means that it's not just me. It's another step toward things not being just me. It took a lot of work to do that, and it was appreciated that he was able to do that. Last little details, I think, and then we'll take a break. The testing infrastructure, we got some new Mac Minis that are more powerful, and we're testing Rancher Desktop and OrbStack and 2 versions of Kalima on those now. So that's an improvement. We'd still rather those not be in my house, but we haven't figured out financially how that would be possible. Buying the machines is cheaper than paying for the service. I think many of you know that the Drupal community was kind enough to award me the Aaron Winborn Award, which is a community thing, which I was quite surprised by because I haven't been active in the Drupal community for years, but I do talk to a lot of Drupal folks in our world here, so that's great. And of course, as we've talked about, my wife Nancy and I went 2 months to Patagonia and Chile for a big self-supported bicycle trip, and you kept things going, so thank you for that. I've got a bunch of statistics here. I'll just let you take a look at those. The it was very interesting to look at amplitude at our usage. And it looks to me like we have about 10,000 weekly users. So about every week, about 10,000 people use DDEV. That I think is about double from last year. We do have some people still using older versions that don't get reported in this. And the financial overview, the total income was up quite a bit, $47,000. We'll take a look at the actual financial report a little later. Our expenses, about 45,000, 35,000 for paid maintainers, some for equipment purchase. As you remember, last year we had to pay some corporate taxes, and we sent about $2,000 for upstream support. The monthly income goes up and down rather surprisingly. I think the higher months usually are for companies catching up on their monthly invoices and that kind of thing. And of course, this money does not impact me at all. It benefits me because the DDEV Foundation doing well is good, and it does pay for a couple of services I use, but I don't receive any income from the DDEV Foundation. So at the end here, issues and concerns. It is normal for maintainers to come and go, and people need to be able to do that. People need to be able to step up, and they need to be able to step back. And sometimes they have time, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes they have a life. Matt Stein found that he needed additional income, and I think in some ways he had accomplished what he wanted to give to the community. So that's great. And of course, we haven't lost touch with him, but losing touch with Simon, as I've said. I've tried a number of things to get in touch with Simon using all the techniques that I had, and I've tried to telephone him, and I even have a friend who's a policeman in Switzerland, and I asked him for advice, and he came up with a couple other contact techniques that didn't work out. But my wife Nancy says I need to send him a snail mail. And I think that's true. So I think a snail mail is the last thing. A snail mail with a handwritten envelope is the next thing. But that's a concern. And of course, it's the thing that we're trying to do is to build a resilient community with enough maintainers that we can handle those sort of things. Issues and concerns include project governance. We've talked about this, and we talked about it last year at our meeting. DDEV project is a benevolent dictatorship, and I'm the dictator, but we need to find our way to more community governance as we do that. And so that's something that is on the agenda for this year. And of course, many of you are always worried about the support load. We love to help people. You know that I love to help people, but as we grow, we need to make sure that people get supported without using up all of any particular person. So we'll take a break in just a couple of minutes, but any comments about our 2023 review? Any things that stuck in your mind that should be brought up? I talk too much, don't I? Yeah, well. Okay.
I did go back to the calendar invite to say, oh, this is a 2-hour meeting. I was like, Randy, we're never going to get through 2024. And then I was like, okay, this is why we do this once a year and do it extra long. So
that's right.
Yeah,
that's
I think you timed it very well and gave everything the amount of attention that it deserved.
So let's take everybody needs a break right quick. Let's start at 5 minutes after the hour. It's 9:57 my time right now. Let's start. Everybody can take a quick break and stand up, and let's start at 5 minutes after the hour.
All right. Happy smoking.
Okay, I guess we're close to getting ready to go again. Any comments or questions or thoughts about our review that you've come up with when taking a break? They're welcome anytime, of course. We'll go ahead and start talking about the proposals. Andrew says feels like a successful year. I think it was a successful year, and thanks to all of you. In a lot of ways, DDEV just keeps on, walking forward. It doesn't feel like, even though when you start looking for what did we add and what features did we do or whatever, it all during the year it feels very incremental. We just keep on going. We just update to the next PHP version and update to this and solve this bug and that bug and create this bug and that bug. So very, very incremental, but it does add up to a lot. And just the project being lively and alive and maintained is in itself worth an enormous amount. It's not just about features getting added. So
I think it's definitely a great example of a successful open source project. You know,
yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see that community working. It's a great thing. So okay, well the 2024 plans are up here on your screen and of course in the ddev.com/blog. And these are proposals to talk about with you today and to find out what may be important to you or not important to you. We did have a discussion about these in the discussions, and some of you piped in there. The list of things that I put in there as thoughts in that discussion weren't particularly organized. And so I've tried to respond. I've tried to reorganize those here in a way that people can, that, they're organized by community and sustainability and features. But they still don't necessarily address everything that you would want, and maybe you don't think that these are all important. So let's take a look at these, and feel free to pipe up with ideas that you may have, or like for additional initiatives, or if you think that these aren't valuable, then that's another thing to talk about. So that's great. So the contributor training initiative that we did in the fall, or we did it for months, we did it every week for months. It really was great. The actual live attendance was not what I would hope, but I have heard from many people who watched the videos or who created documents from them that was good. But I do think that when we do it again this year, I want to make sure that that each of these things gets properly documented. So a lot of times, a lot of the blah, blah, blah that I'm doing isn't necessarily properly documented. And that's why, it'll come up in a video, oh yeah, and then you do this and you do that. Now, Stas and I have worked through and tried to capture, since he's been working on the project, we've tried to capture many of the maintainer tasks in documentation. And we have both public documentation in the DDEV.readthedocs.io. And we also, on things that might be a little more sensitive or out in the weeds. We also have a private repository for documenting that kind of thing. And both he and I have been trying to capture those as we hit them. But they still everything that we do in the contributor training needs to be captured and make sure that it does land in docs. And of course, we want to continue the outstanding user support. A lot of people say that we have better support than any than the average commercial product, and I think we do, and we're happy to do that. We love it. You know, it's a community thing, and you can tell that I love it. But we need people like you, of course, to answer questions as well. And you did that while I was on the bike trip. You did that and you stepped up to that, and that was fantastic. But continuing that support and making sure that's sustainable are key things. And then improving the governance strategy. I think I explained at one of our meetings that I had an organization that I basically created a number of years ago, and then worked on its governance strategy and built a board and got it properly financed and got all the things done. And then a single board member went rogue, and the whole experience was really quite bad. And and I ended up walking away from the organization. And I don't like those kind of things to happen. And so I want to figure out how to make sure that we have a community that has its own governance and that does well with it, and also that that I don't run the risk of that. Obviously, some of the response from my response to that is personal and emotional and fear, and it may not even be reasonable fear, but I want to have us find our way to a community governance strategy that works, gets things done, is distributed, and isn't just, under my control, but I want to do that successfully. So that's I don't know the answers of how to do that. The first two things under community, well, all we have to do is start scheduling contributor training. Second one, all we have to do is keep doing what we're doing and hopefully get more people involved. But the governance strategy, I don't have an answer for. As I said earlier, I'm really happy that Mike Anello is on the bank account. That's just it's a small thing, but it's something that isn't under my control. And I'm really happy that Stas has the proper credentials for almost everything we do, which is fantastic. So, Carrie, go ahead.
Okay, well, some of you probably know, Tiffany Ferris and I basically put together the structure of the Drupal Association. One of the challenges is it costs money, but I think we have most of the elements to do that. And I think we could look at the Drupal Association structure to figure out how to do that. And I think it's a good structure. I mean, it basically came off of a chaotic structure that the Drupal Association, the previous Drupal Association, the European one, had. So, I'm willing to help with that. I don't think Tiffany will be, but I will be. Maybe she will be. Who knows? I bet she very well might be. But I think that's it. I mean, you have once we have a 501c3, we can build it around that because it would become the board of the 501c3.
We already have a Colorado nonprofit, which we've had for a couple of years. And so the 501c3 is just a governmental acknowledgement of nonprofit status. So
Or
we
that,
already
or
have the organization, and we could easily redo the organization to say that it had a board. That is just a filing with the Colorado Secretary of State. There's nothing to that. The real issue is being successful.
well, I mean, I think the real issue is having the right bylaws and the right structure. You know, that was certainly the real issue in our case, and I think that we succeeded. And seeing as, even though there are certainly differences between Drupal and DDEV, there are enough similarities, at least from the governance side, that I think that would work just fine. I mean, Drupal also has a benevolent dictator, although that's not it's sort of written into the bylaws. So, you know, I mean, I think it's worth a look, but that's all I got to say about it.
That's
Yeah.
thank you for stepping up on that. The reality is that the Drupal Association and the Drupal community aren't the same exact thing, and the governance of Drupal is not exactly the same as the governance of the Drupal Association. But thank you for pointing out that a benevolent partial dictatorship can be compatible with a board structure, and that actually gets us part of the way there.
Yeah, Randy, can I add something to Selwyn? I kind of had a similar experience to you, except in my case, I was trying to set up a co-housing community in Austin, and you know, takes a few people. It's hard to get decisions made by consensus, things of that sort of nature. And you know, after 10 years of work, the thing finally completely blew up. But I agree totally that structuring it around you being uniquely qualified as a benevolent dictator, I think is an excellent strategy, and just have the others kind of in support. I don't think there's anything wrong with a structure like that. Plus, you know, someone goes rogue, hey, no big deal. You issue an edict, it's fixed. So
the reality in my experience was that I should have done battle and didn't, and so I theoretically have learned some things over the years. But yeah, thank you for those comments. I think that we have some work that we can actually be successful with on this year, and so we will pursue that. And thanks for the good thinking, and thanks for the mention again of the Drupal Association as a model. And of course, there are many other models of governance for open source organizations. And back in the day, I've written a whole study on those and how they work. And that's made me interested in watching all of them function. I get the emails from the Debian folks about how they're making decisions, and it's always super interesting. Yeah, Symfony's another good example, as Guy said. And of course, Fabian, the benevolent dictator of Symfony, is very interested in DDEV, and he's been very helpful when I've reached out to him about that. So he has very specific views, as you would imagine. He has very, very specific views about how things should be done, and it's very interesting. So
Fabian is actually more like an actual dictator than Dries is, in my experience.
Yeah, are you saying he's not benevolent?
I guess it depends how you define benevolent.
Fabian Mussolini, right?
Well, we didn't get him here today, but we can poke at him anyway. He did come last year to this. Any other comments on the community section before we move forward? So on sustainability and finance, this group has been consistently saying over years that we have to build marketing and we have to build our financial base. And we have made progress on that this past year with the CRM, blogs, clear fundraising efforts. You'll see we had a number of blogs. That's all good. I've been back now for a month and I haven't been paying that much attention to it, just doing the newsletter and making sure that the CRM is kept up to date. But I haven't made any calls or contacts to most of our supporters. And I think we need to continue that. I think we did a really good job of bumping that up. Carrie, of course, has been saying for years that we needed to hire somebody to do that, but I haven't been able to bring myself to the idea of spending people's donations on, or their support money on marketing, but we are making progress on it. So. And the newsletter is done in a better way now so that we actually have a way to sign up and, you know, and we let people know about that. So I'm always interested in your experience with the newsletter. Does it meet your needs? Does it remind you of the right things? Does it have the right call to action? Your suggestions on how to improve the newsletter are very welcome. Or if you want to write it, that's welcome too. And this year we would like to add a third paid co-maintainer. Frankly, what we had been hoping for was a second or maybe more full-time paid co-maintainer. And we've ended up with Stas, who doesn't have full-time available, but puts in amazingly productive contribution with the time that he has. So you're about quarter time, little more, quarter to a third of a time, I think, Stas. 10 to 15 hours a week would be what I think you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with that. That's a really nice situation. And so if we could have a third co-maintainer of the class of Stas, that would be amazing. So the whole idea of having to have a full-time maintainer is not the only way to go. Of course, Stas may want to become a full-time maintainer at some point in his journey, and that would be another beautiful thing. But we definitely want to keep going on that strategy. Chris says he loves the newsletter, but tips of the day is what he really likes. I want to point out to all of you that you can contribute to the tips of the day at the remote-config repository. You can just add your own tips of the day, or just mention it in Discord or wherever you want, and I'll add it in there. So it's great. Truls says, have we done a survey of the newsletter or anything? Have we done any surveys? Have we done any kind of survey? I don't know that we've ever done any kind of survey. So we're dependent on people speaking up about things. It'd be interesting to see what kind of response we would get if we tried some kind of survey. I guess I should say, an online survey or an email survey. We haven't done anything like that. I do try to ask people like you. I do try to ask people like you how it's going, what does it mean, what do you need, those kinds of things, and that's a kind of survey. Robert Lang says, does the tip of the day support a local database or source? Yes, it's stored in your /dev.remote-config file, and it's controlled by another file in there. And there is a little bit of information about that in the global-config.yaml. Happy to talk more about that. But the tip of the day, people do people do come up with interesting things to add to that, and love to have your contribution, but just mentioning it, we'll put it in there, because sometimes there's so many things. DDEV has so many little features that would be really profitable for everybody. And, you know, we need to say it. So we need to put that in there. So when you come up with something that you didn't know before, that you think maybe other people didn't know, let's do it. So. Any other comments there? So on features for this year, I put a number of things here that I would really like to happen. One is Platform's new product, Upsun, probably needs an add-on, but I'm currently stuck on how to do that. Maybe we can, and Paul and I have had a number of conversations about this. They're only targeting a few CMSs, unlike their platform flagship. They're only targeting a few CMSs. So maybe we can do an add-on that only does the targeted PHP CMSs, for example. Some of you are probably familiar with the DDEV XH GUI add-on, which gives a much better XHProf performance studying experience in DDEV. And I'd like to, it is only stuck on a thing or two, and I'd like to incorporate that into DDEV Core, or mostly into DDEV Core. He's just done great work making that work. And since Platform no longer lets people use their performance tool for free, it gets, even though DDEV has support for Blackfire, it's not very useful to most people. And the configuration code, originally DDEV didn't have global configuration. And so ever since it did get global configuration, every single config item that has been tried to move into global has been a separate effort. And it means there's a bunch of weird duplicated code, and sometimes code that doesn't work perfectly, and it could be redone and rethought. And I'd like to do that, even though that's just dealing with technical debt. It would be a good thing. So Chris Wells asks about DDEV XH GUI. It is not official. It's not an official add-on at this time, and that would be a fine next step. I guess probably the reason that it isn't is that I've just been expecting to move forward. There's one little technical difficulty with how it deals with the XHProf config, which is not perfect from the DDEV side. And so I was just assuming that we would solve that and then maybe move it into core. But I guess the real thing is make it an official add-on, solve that problem, and then talk about core. So that's a good point. So Guy says, with DDEV moving into a more general and not necessarily PHP focused web tool, are there other web technologies that have profiling tools that we should look at? Yeah, good question, especially for Node. So Andy already answers that Node has a built-in profiler. So that means there's nothing to be done there, Andy?
I just know that there's a built-in profiler. I don't actually know how to use it. I've never tried.
That's great, thanks. So Andy and I talked about the other day about an explicit Node.js backend where Node.js is living the role of PHP FPM so you would have a Nginx or Apache web server which delivered the request to a node backend. We already can't do this right now, and Andy wrote up how to do it in one of the issues, but we would like to actually make explicit support and probably make it explicit, and we'll talk about this in architecture, probably make it explicit so that you can do many things as a backend. So in the position of PHP, FPM, and GUnicorn on the other side, that we would do that. And then we also talked about an add-on registry. Right now, we have DDEV get -list for official add-ons, and we have DDEV get -list all for all add-ons, and that's not really quite enough. I should have been sharing my, oops, what's going on here? I should have been sharing my screen so that I'm not. Maybe I am sharing my screen. No, I'm not.
seeing your screen on the 2024.
Oh, you are?
plans page.
Okay. I thought, you know, Zoom moves all the controls around when you start sharing your screen, and then you don't know what's going on. Okay, good. Thank you. So those are the features that made this list. If you have features that you think are important for DDEV's future, we're always glad to hear about them, and I'm interested to hear your reactions to those features. But an add-on registry is, I guess, I got stopped in the middle. The DDEV get -list is not that great in what it shows. DDEV get -list. It just shows a quick description, and it would be a lot better if it had a piece of the README, for example, of these, and it would be a lot better if it had a link to the actual add-on repository. So there's work to be done there, and I think we can make that better.
Won't that have to wait for the, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Carrie?
Won't that have to wait for a GUI really to be useful?
No, it could be a website.
You could put it on ddev.com and
Yeah,
have it.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
It could be a website. It could be an improved DDEV get -list. It could be, yeah. So I think there's more than one way to do it. Okay, architecture is a number of things that we've talked about for quite a number of years, and these we've already mentioned these as we've gone along today. DDEV web server is obviously a huge Docker image. Even with it compressed, it's half a gigabyte, and it's more than a gigabyte when uncompressed. That isn't a bad thing. Well, people don't approve of it. It's not fundamentally bad for a local development environment because the goal of DDEV is to help developers with local development. But it is big, and the base image could be smaller, and each PHP version could be its own image and container. And the Apache and Nginx versions could be in separate images. That means a lot of images, a lot of separate images, but it is a possibility. So it requires some experimentation to see what we can do with that. Carrie, go ahead.
Well, I guess the existential question is, would adding multiple images, and I'm in a project that has 1 billion images, would that make it easier or harder to maintain? And I think it's, because if it makes it harder to maintain, it doesn't matter how big the image is, because it's just harder to maintain.
I think that's one of the fundamental questions is it going to be too much of a mess? Now, I have to say, though, that pushing the DDEV web server, which we do via GitHub, does take well, the underlying DDEV PHP base takes an hour to build and push. And then the DDEV web server only takes about 10 minutes on top of that. But if that were broken up, it could be faster to get a new one up there. And there may be even ways to do it with a separate layer. But I think in this discussion, it has to be like, how much trouble is it to maintain? Because, yeah.
So, I mean, it's great that it would be faster, and I'm sure it would be faster breaking it up. But, one of our major constraints is the availability of resources to actually, human resources to actually do these things. And that's my question, not, not how long it takes for a machine to do it.
Interestingly enough, for MySQL and MariaDB and also for Postgres, we actually do separate images, and that has been successful. And the base of the Docker file is common, so maybe it wouldn't be a catastrophe.
Well, that's damning by faint praise.
Well, what I'm saying is it might, I'm overstating it, but since we already do that successfully with the base Docker file being shared, we may be able to do that with, we could certainly do it with PHP, for example.
Right.
So it's got potential. Robert Lang says, would it make testing all possible combinations harder? I don't think so, because we already test them all in our automated testing. And Guy says, what are the actual advantages of breaking it up? I think just having on the user side, the advantage of breaking up the images is that a single project might have 2 or 3 images to pull that would be far smaller together than the one large do everything DDEV web server. And does breaking up the images improve the end user experience? The biggest problem that we have with the end user experience with the huge DDEV web server is that people don't approve of big Docker images. And so it's partly just a stylish thing. They don't approve. So Andy says he breaks conference Wi-Fi when everybody does a poll on a new one. Jonas, go ahead.
Additionally to the style, and you said to make them smaller for the users, for me, it would be also to embrace the container idea, the whole container idea, having only single processes actually in one container. So that lends to the to what you said, like the images will be smaller and more of them, but having the mail pit split off, and so I'm all up for that. I like the container idea.
So the Jonas is referring to the fact that from the beginning of the Docker world, the general idea has been that you should have one process that is encapsulated in a container. And that it's a reasonable thing. In some ways, it's just a religion, and it's not as important as we've proved that it's fine to run multiple processes in a container with DDEV web server, but it's not fully straightforward, and people disapprove of it. So people disapprove of it being big, and they disapprove of it having multiple processes running into it. And so making them happy is not a bad thing. It's not the end of the world, because our real goal is for developers to have a good experience. And Guy says, does it improve the end user experience? Not much, except when you're pulling a new when you're pulling a new release. Robert, let's see if I caught everybody. Robert says, would it make working with DDEV harder for a more non-technical user? No, it wouldn't change anything about whether DDEV is easier or harder to use. So, and
Maybe
one thing to
a
also
bit harder.
consider is
Sorry.
that, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Maybe a bit harder for the people integrating deeper into DDEV. But it would just mean they would have to really understand the container concept more than they are probably than many are probably used to it. So from the documentation and support standpoint, it's probably easier to stay as we are, I would say. Yeah.
it has both sides. I think the biggest issue is how much work is it going to be on the DDEV development end. So
yeah, I think that you know, so I talked about I'm working on a project. Project has 16 containers, but those containers, you know, one is traffic, one's Drupal, and the other containers are all microservices. You know, things like Matomo and whatever, or very library specific microservices. But the Drupal container is all of the Drupal part of the project, which is the whole front end. So it's a big container. You know, I think that I wouldn't go that way unless it's really useful. Now, to have different containers for different versions of PHP, maybe that, or maybe, and one without PHP, maybe that makes sense, you know, but yeah, I'd be hesitant to try and really put a lot of time into totally taking this apart because I don't think the payoff would be there.
we'll see.
I do think something to keep in mind is that like the payoff is, on the one hand, maybe not as obvious to the people who are in this room right now, but you know, as a real world example, I was traveling at my parents' house and they have bad internet. Like it's just they can't get anything that's particularly reliable. And I was working and there was something that needed a DDEV upgrade, and I waited doing that till I was back home because I could not justify downloading 2 gigs over an hour and a half or whatever it was going to take to get done. And it does make me think like how many people might be interested in using DDEV, but then get to that point where like, yeah, the DDEV app is quick to install, and then they see those images downloading and they just hit Control-C and are like, I can't, do that. And for maybe something which is a more narrower case that we do see is with running DDEV in CI, downloading DDEV is often the biggest step that takes place. And I think we'd save a lot of time and energy, even if we weren't necessarily re-architecting, it's just if it was, smaller and more focused.
So how do we make that decision then? I mean, should we definitely do it because of people with lousy internet, of which there are many, who don't want to pay for Starlink, which I don't, or how do we make that decision?
I think it's going to be a bit of experimentation to see what we can actually do and what the impact is. It's not that hard to experiment with. We've had, like there's a recipe in DDEV contrib for using old PHP, like PHP 5.2 as a separate container, using the Devilbox containers, Devilbox images. That's it. There's plenty of ways to do this. It's whether it ends up being valuable is the thing. Go ahead, Selwyn.
I wonder if maybe that's a good survey question to send out in a newsletter. See if people are hitting struggles with this, or
Yeah, that's a good point. I have absolutely had Andrew's experience. For some reason, Starbucks, I think, nationwide has has cut down their bandwidth they're willing to give. So, and I'm always changing Docker providers to check with things. So I'll change the Docker provider and then I have the new user experience. And if I'm at Starbucks, I just can't do it. I just can't,
Right.
I can't wait for it to download. It's impossible. So, Carrie says, what are we using now? We use Debian for the base of most of our images, usually Debian Slim. It isn't, you can make smaller images with like Alpine, but you get a lot of trouble that comes with it. It's a very bad world, even though it can be done with certain limited things. It doesn't, we've been very successful using Debian because all the packages that you need are available and those kind of things. So
Pretty sure that we've been using BusyBox last time I looked.
Using BusyBox as a base is a lot of work. You have to, anyway, so we've talked about, I think we've already talked in this meeting about making the web server component swappable. People ask for Caddy these days. As I look at the worldwide use of web servers, Apache and Nginx really cover everything, but people are asking for more, and it shouldn't be that hard to do. And that could be facilitated by breaking up DDEV web server and then supporting more backends like we've already talked about, like Node.js or FrankenPHP, and like we do with GUnicorn. If we did that in a standard way instead of a way where you had to have Go code to do it every time, that would be something. So really, in all of these architecture discussions, we're talking about some of the same issues, but we could make the web server component partially swappable by saying, here, you can have these three things. You can have Nginx and Apache and Caddy, and just bundling Caddy into the DDEV web server. But that isn't a very satisfactory long-term approach. And we can make the backends, we can make those swappable by just building them in like we've done with GUnicorn for that. So okay, Guy had a number of comments here. That there are benefits to splitting it, faster image pulls on upgrade, perhaps. Faster setup of one-off installs, I think so. Faster anytime you have trouble with download speed. Projects might be able to have only what they need. And so that's a good list. So thank you very much for that, Guy. And thanks, Chris, for adding that to the notes. Yeah, it absolutely. Yeah, just downloading images in general is really a pain. DDEV web server is really a pain anytime you have any kind of internet trouble. So yeah, so I think the overall architecture discussions, I'm sure you'll be following the issues that will be opening for this year, and there's some experimentation to be done here. We may find that breaking images doesn't get the value that we would hope for, because of course you still have most of the operating system in each image. But I think we can do better. Any other comments on architecture? So this last one I just put down in future possibilities. I don't think that we will probably get to a text UI or a graphical UI this year. I don't think we'll be there. And there are a number of people that mentioned that just makes them suspicious. It was Andrew. Andrew said, well, you know, as soon as somebody starts making a GUI, they just go downhill. And he's not all wrong. He's not all wrong. But still, people ask for non-command line options for things. Over the years, they ask it over and over again, and there is a whole huge audience that could use DDEV if they had a GUI that worked for it. Some of you know that we had a React-based GUI wrapper on DDEV for a year or two. It was never really successful. Didn't have adequate testing, and of course your testing goes through the roof when you have to do a GUI. But I would love to see those things happen someday, or as long as somebody else did it, because I'm no good at any of those. So it's about, you know, you've sat here and solved this. You've put up with me talking for 2 hours now, so we're going to stop.
So I have a short comment on the TUI GUI, which is I've been in the depths of sort of productivity and list management and to-do management lately, and I'm wondering if this is an item that should be dismissed. Like, is it, we've sort of talked about it for years. Do we just need to cross it off so that we can let it go as a community until there really is a clamoring for it? And then one reason why I mention it is, like, I have found that the VS Code add-on for DDEV solves my GUI needs. Like, I can go into VS Code and see what's running and start and stop and manage my projects there. I feel like that is enough of a GUI lift to solve maybe the 80% use case of a GUI. So just something that I think is
so the
a possible consideration.
I think that's worthy. That's worthy. And of course, with me leading, we're never going to get to a decent GUI because I just don't know anything about it. It's not the technology that's the problem. It's the design that's the problem. And that's the key to a successful GUI. So, well, good point. Good point. So Guy says currently add-ons are literally that they add on, but breaking up the image could make it possible to swap out backends for custom add-ons. Yeah, actually, there are already solutions like this. Like, you could do there's actually one, right? There's a open issue explaining how to do Caddy, which could be implemented as an add-on very easily. Andrew says another idea would be this is about downloading new images. You could download the DDEV version images before upgrading. You know, we used to put the images as a tarball on every release, and it was for that reason. And it was also for the old, we had for the Drupal community, for DrupalCons, we had a DDEV version that was one big bundled thing. And that was also for that, so that the images were separately downloadable. And we could do that. So that's a thing. Guy says TUI or GUI is a good design, and it's absolutely right. And Paul says, can we get a similar item for other IDs? We do have one great for PHP Storm, and we have a great one for VS Code, and those are the two biggest things. Unfortunately, Python, the JetBrains Python thing doesn't really understand Docker properly, so it's a bit disappointing. So, okay, we have officially 7 minutes, but we're probably all exhausted. But feel free to say whatever you'd like to say. I'd like to say thank you for coming, and these conversations every couple of months help me enormously, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much. And thanks to Stanislav especially, and Chris who took the note, and everybody who's working here in the project.
So we will have the recording and the notes and everything in the discussion, the GitHub discussion. So that will all be there, and for other people that may come along later, or the people that want to watch the recording.
No, I mean, let me just add that I think that this project has come along fabulously. You know, I think we've certainly in the Drupal community, you know, not that we're in competition with Lando or whatever, but I think that we've certainly captured a lot of the community, which I think is good because it makes it easy when you're working with a team of developers to share something that has DDEV, and you know, we commit the DDEV stuff attached to it because people can just jump in.
Yeah,
Seeing the
that-
fundraising grow has been very reassuring, and being able to actually, you know, it was a year ago we were saying we got to get some paid maintainers out here, and we have some paid maintainers out here, and that's been very successful. So that is a really good, just indicator of good health, I think.
Well, thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. Always happy to hear from you. Always happy to hear from you in every context. And thanks for spending 2 slogging hours of doing this annual review. We appreciate that very much, and look forward to seeing you next time. Our next meeting is the 1st of the month in May. So we'll see you on May 1st.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Randy.
much.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye,
And-
everybody.